as the market cycles and as technology changes, you're going to have another opportunity to dive into something that didn't exist before and step your game up. And I think that's that curiosity to do that and that willingness to do that, which it's not always easy, is what keeps you going. It's what makes you adapt to so many different periods of market change. So I've gone over this a lot before, but just to kind of hit the point home that I'm trying to talk about today, if you think about when I started in 2002, I think I was playing around before that even, but that's when I started at my prop firm job in Chicago. It was read the order book and use this thing called Camtasia, which was a screen recorder, which is kind of new at the time. I know now this stuff's not new at all. But we'd record our screens, and I'd go home and watch every retracement in a bull market, every retracement in a bear market, every post number move. How did it, if CPI or employment were important, I have to first figure out, okay, when are those numbers important? Sometimes consumer confidence is important after we come out of a recession, right? Sometimes it means nothing. Sometimes employment, like now, is important, and CPI is very important recently, so we all know that. But there's other times where that's not important at all. Market does not even care if CPI misses. And understanding, when is that happening? So then it was, okay, if that happens and it misses, what does the order book look like in all the markets, in the DAX, in the Euro stocks, in the S&P 500, the 10-year, and the Euro currency, and then study the book. Watch it for 10, 15 different events, and you get a feel. You get an intuitive knowing of how to buy, when to buy. So you have the bias because you studied what numbers matter and what the expectations are. Same with a Fed meeting, same with an ECB meeting, right? So that was a whole new skill set to develop, and a lot of people did that, made a lot of money. I did that, made good money on that, and then some point in time happened where it doesn't matter as much anymore. It still matters a little bit now, but meaning that everyone's doing the same thing. They're getting microwave lines and underground lines, and they're getting the numbers early, and they're moving before. It takes away a lot of that edge. So it prices it instantly and then doesn't move, right? And then it's, okay, so now it's hours later or the next day, does it matter? And you're evolving. So if that was your thing, you have to figure out something else. And that flushed a ton of people out of the business. I know tons of people who were good at that, and I was good at it, and I was very good at it. But it stopped working. And then eventually, slowly, that's gone. So it's okay, well, now what do I do? And then from there, it was looking at different things. It was correlations and relationships, and I started spreading S&P versus NASDAQ to feel like if the market was strong or weak. I did it versus the Euro stocks. That worked for a while, and then that kind of went away, and that'll come and go, and depending on what market we're in, if that's useful or not. I don't do that as much anymore. And then it was, oh boy, I'm trying to think of what else. Crypto came along somewhere in there, and that was a frontier market where it was not a lot of, information was not. People were not paying attention to new projects and new things, new divergences between Litecoin and Bitcoin and Ethereum and halvings and all that stuff, forks and stuff, and no one knew, so I'd get into that early, figure it out, and then it's good, and then all of a sudden people know that, so that doesn't matter as much anymore. And then I've skipped over 5 of them probably, but then we go to today. It was okay, GPT comes out, so I'm on that right away early. What does that mean? Well, as someone who has a lot of ideas but can't program, now I can program, so I can test ideas. I can build little applets and things that are checking stuff and making my exploration of ideas that wasn't possible before is now endless. So it's okay, how can I either get people around me who are good thinkers and test ideas? I can collaborate. I can do it myself. I can start building different ways to look at. I'm looking at different baskets of, if I have a narrative of, say, somebody gives me a stock idea or whatever, or someone that I respect that has good ideas. I now build a basket of all the similar related stocks, and I track that basket and I watch it. It's like a custom ETF basically, and I'll watch that and I'll see. And then I have a system I made for determining price action that I like using just basic indicators, nothing magical. And then when that looks like the price action makes sense, well, maybe I try the trades and my risk management is built in. But point being, it's not that any of this is magic or it's what you should do. It's just that these are things that I didn't even think about years ago, but now I'm using them more. And I'm using one-day options more in the futures. So if I have a good idea, instead of getting shaken out 3 times, I can sit in it one time, maybe trade the option a few times, and catch the big idea without having massive open-ended risk. So it's using my skills of understanding the market, but understanding that the technology has made it harder and harder to stay in the moves because of the whippiness. It used to be clean, I could stay in it, now it's not clean. So it's just always thinking that way. And sometimes the lights go off for a while and it's hard, and then all of a sudden it gets easy. And it's like, I've heard it said that this job is really hard, but sometimes it's easy, and it's maybe not a lot. But when it is easy, you have to be around for the easy part, and that's just surviving. And I think that's kind of the big message that I've been telling myself lately too, is when you do things, just keep in mind that like it never is going to really change to some extent. If you have that outlook and that curiosity, you're always going to find something else because you're always moving forward. I remember back in 2000, I was on the message boards looking up like what, bullshit, hyped up tech stock, chip stock was going to take off, and I was trying to front run kind of, the crowd with the greater fool theory, basically. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did really well with that, and then I lost a lot of it. But it was just another way of adapting to the times with the tools that I had. And then now it's like I've made money from my stuff, so now I have to do wealth management. So I'm taking some courses in like how do I diversify and manage the money, which is totally different than trading. And that's another job that I now have had to deal with that I didn't have before, which is a good problem to have, but it's definitely more resources and it can be more stress. But so that's like the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is sizing. So totally different topic. Sizing, position sizing. A lot of people talk about how do I go up? Like I have 3 winning days in a row and I go up. It's like, okay, well, what if the 3 winning days was good for your strategy and then the next winning day is terrible for your strategy? Trend, and then mean reversion. So then you blow up with your 4th day and give back all your money. It doesn't make sense. So the better way to do it is just think of it as like, I want to scale this and I want to take tons of reps. And if you keep taking tons of reps and you manage your risk, eventually over time, you don't have to try. It goes up on its own. It's just honestly not hard for it to go up. Think about like a sport. When you start scoring and breaking down defense in basketball and you have your moves and you have your offense, it's not hard for you to score points when that starts happening. But when that's not happening and you want it to happen, you start forcing shots. And all of a sudden when you force shots, you lose your confidence and of your teammates too. And then when you do have an open shot, you don't even want to take it because you lost your confidence. So contrast that with incrementally growing and improving and something that you want to scale with the intention of understanding that you can go up a little bit, but it'll just happen when you're on the right track. And I went through this so many times. It's tough because I like to push the envelope and trade bigger, but sometimes it's just the small ball, I call it, where you're medium to small size for whatever that is for you, tends to make you a lot more money because then you just get big by accident. By virtue of doing the right things, you end up being bigger at the right times. And you end up being smaller when it's dangerous. And you end up taking winners on losing trades. Like it's the wrong idea, but it goes your way, it doesn't feel right, you get out. And you don't have to wait for your stop because you just know it's not right. And that's what you do when you're winning. And I've gone through, for the end of time, this podcast is going to be going through the same things over and over because that's what it is. It's the same stuff. It's just mastering the same little things for you, which is going to be different for me, but it rhymes in terms of mastering risk management, mastering yourself. And no one's going to be just like me. I'm not going to be just like them. And I've talked with a younger person who's really interested in trading, and it's about like, what do I do? How do I start? And it's just like you go where you're interested, you read a lot of stuff, you reach out to people who vibe with you, who you felt like a connection with what they said, and then you go from there, and you just follow the breadcrumbs. You just keep saying yes to the ones that feel good, and when they don't, you don't do it. And you figure out that like, you figure it out. If you start blowing up, maybe you need options more because you can't trust your risk management, so you give it over to the options and you sacrifice some profit. And that's real simple and blunt, and maybe that works for you. And then it evolves. Later on, it's like, okay, well, I have a different strategy. And I'm very analytical, and I like to look at option spreads and play my ideas that way. And okay, great. And then somebody else wants to be outright more. And it's just, you find your way there. It's kind of like you don't know how much is too much risk until you go through a big drawdown, and then you realize, oh, this is what I'm wired. I'm not wired for this. I can't trade this way. Even if it works on paper, I can't live through it. That's a big thing for me. It's like, oh, look at my system. It's great. It only draws down 35%. Well, in practice, it's going to end up being worse at some point. But then you can't handle it. You can't live through it. You can't go to bed at night. You're sick to your stomach. It's not going to work. So you got to build something that works for you. Something that you feel good about, that you don't feel like you're losing yourself. So that's my rant for today. Good luck.